Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
Well, once again, we are at the center of the NFL universe, as I take two here on a Monday. Cardinals Cover 2. Yes, the center of the NFL universe, as the league and all of its owners in Phoenix, specifically the Biltmore. And MJ and I were out there earlier this morning, and you can't walk, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 yards without running into an owner, an executive, a head coach, general manager, and of course, media everywhere. But hey, they picked a good week because the weather is fantastic, and news expected. Maybe not so much today, but I think news, when we touched on it on Friday's show, as far as new rules, instant replay, maybe some tweaks, maybe potentially Tuesday for all of that.
Yeah, and normally they'll bring out Roger Goodell and Rich McKay, who's really in charge of the competition committee. We'll see what gets tabled, meaning you need 24 of 32 votes, which is 75%. And if they're close, then they'll table to the next meeting. And the NFL has done a good job when it comes to the owners' meetings. Of course, a lot of the owners and head coaches and GMs, when it comes to their families, they love the Arizona Biltmore. Plus, it's centrally located. I mean, you got a ton of restaurants down Camelback, of course, Scottsdale Fashion Square. So they like coming here. And then normally they'll bounce back down to Florida. The Breakers there. So I don't think you can go wrong in either or, but we like having the owners' meetings every couple of years.
Yeah, a couple of quick notes just off the top. The NFL did announce that the 100th season of football will kick off on Thursday, September 5th. And unlike previous years when you have the defending Super Bowl champion highlighted that night, they're going to do a little something differently. It's going to be Bears and Packers in Chicago. That's going to be the Thursday night matchup. Now, the Patriots will be highlighted on Sunday Night Football against a team to be announced. So that is, 3 teams that we know, one official game for Week 1 right now.
Yeah, it makes sense with the 100th season. You look at that rivalry, and the Bears, I'm sure they're going to be favored at home, but that's a great opportunity for a new coaching staff in Green Bay. And, they were, 6-9-1 last year. We know the Cardinals were able to go up there and get a victory, and they fire Mike McCarthy. So curious to see with a new staff, and they did keep the defensive coordinator, but it makes sense. And now everyone's kind of projecting who the Patriots will open up on Sunday Night Football. I guess the Browns are on the schedule. We want the Browns in Week 1, right?
You look for any kind of storylines, anything to move the meter. But look, Week 1, everything's going to move the meter. But there are certain matchups, either on the field storylines or off the field storylines that people pay attention to.
Yeah, and don't forget tomorrow is the NFL Coaches Breakfast at 8:15. Don't be late.
Yes. I'll be there.
Make sure you get there early, and don't be afraid to eat in front of the coach that you're sitting with. Probably going to be Kliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, I think I'll wait. I think I'll wait a little bit on that.
That's fair.
All right, let's take off here on this Monday. Tell you what's ahead on this afternoon show. Larry Fitzgerald's incredible Saturday. Trust me, it's good to be Fitz. Kliff Kingsbury talks NFL draft, and yes, the number 1 pick is discussed. Cardinals Flight Plan Episode 4 debuts this week. We've got a preview, and of course your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2, using the number 2 to get involved in the show. We'll do that a little bit later on here this afternoon. Of course, we do it every show, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But first, the news of the day, and we will start with the annual league meetings that are going on this week. Larry Fitzgerald, a big part of it this morning. He was asked by Commissioner Roger Goodell to talk to club executives about what owners and management can do to help players succeed, not only on the field, but off the field, and specifically after their playing days have concluded.
For instance, I have different interests, as I've gotten older, and, one is real estate, and I talked about a few guys who are the best in the world at development, and Ziggy Wilf and Stan Kroenke and Stephen Ross. I mean, you can't find any more successful men in developing real estate around the country, and have relationships with those guys, and, what they've been able to teach me and help me maybe get around some of the obstacles that I may face as I try to follow in their footsteps. So I just think those type of relationships, about them taking a keen interest in the players' lives and seeing what their interests are, and seeing how they can help, and seeing how they can, change the statistics, of guys, when they're retired, in terms of just having productive lives after they walk away from the game.
Now, Fitz's entire 7-minute presentation titled Succeeding Off the Field has been uploaded to azcardinals.com. I invite everyone to take a look, and for those that are fans of number 11, on how much he has grown as a person from his rookie year, now entering 35 years old, and this will be his 16th NFL season. Just how much he has grown as a person, not so much the player, but here's someone who wasn't very I won't say shy, just didn't like being in front of cameras. And yet earlier today, he spoke in front of a group of in excess of 100 people and explaining to them how important it is for them to kind of get into the players' lives and how they might affect them to succeed, so they're not down on their luck after their playing days, and make sure that there's something beyond football for a lot of those guys. But as Fitz said afterwards, MJ, it's incumbent upon the owners to do that, but it's also the players have to ask for that help as well. How can I be successful? How can I better myself? And sometimes, and it works for everyday people, to get an athlete to ask for help, I mean, that's difficult because, as Fitz said, what was it? Pride and ego get in the way sometimes.
Well, and part of that was, and you could, like you mentioned, go to azcardinals.com and you could see the entire 7 minutes. I mean, we knew that he, when the lights on and the red lights on, he over time though, just watching Larry grow as a person and a player. I mean, he's well spoken when it comes to speaking to groups, and I'm sure it wasn't easy when he had a part of the eulogy for Senator John McCain when he passed, and I know he was nervous for that. He well prepared, but just a great speaker. And one of the messages from Larry was, when he was talking to over 100 people, was not everyone, grows up with a mother and a father. A lot of guys are coming from different places, so maybe they just don't have the background or the discipline. And said, we got to open up these doors for these guys because, at the end of the day, we're all getting to the NFL, but we're all coming there different ways. And obviously Larry's father was a sports writer. And Larry basically said he had 2 jobs in his entire life.
Yes, a ball boy for the Minnesota Vikings and then a wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals.
And he thanked every single owner for allowing him that opportunity and the platform. And so, listen, we're lucky to have him here, and it doesn't amaze me every time I see him talking, and he gets it. I mean, he definitely wants to give back, and a lot of guys don't want to be a role model. They think that's up to the parents, but he's willing to step into that frame and say, you know what, I want to be a role model, and I want to help.
Yeah, the one thing that Fitz has always done, he's always asked guys that are in his position, whether on his own team or across the league, for advice when he was growing up. Now the tables are turned because now Fitz believes it's his job to be kind of that mentor, and it's something that over the years he's been more than willing to offer advice, not only to his own teammates, but anyone across the NFL that might ask for his help.
Guys from around the league, not even from the league, from just in general, reach out to me, and I try to help as best way I can, answer any questions they may have. And it's important, to try to, just give a helping hand to people. I mean, I'm excited just in the development of the guys on my team, Christian Kirk, and we just signed Kevin White. I mean, guys that I've talked to and have had great relationships over the years, and it gives me, a sense of purpose, more so just going out there and running routes and catching footballs. But you help young men, shape the outcome of their lives, and that's very valuable. You see big brothers and sisters doing that every single day around our nation, and that's I don't take it for granted.
Larry's going into his 16th year, and you look back, I don't think he wanted to go out like that, and I think he's hit on that a couple times. He's actually, over the last couple of weeks, he's gotten players together, and they're just working out. And so here's a guy in his 16th year, really doesn't need to do off-season stuff. And whether this is his last year or not, we'll talk about that when we get to week 16 and 17. But he didn't want to go out, and I think if this is his final year, he wants to go out in a bang. But here he is getting everyone together, and I thought they were throwing the ball around. He says, no, we're just going through workouts and obviously tempo. But he said a lot of guys are showing up, and that to me is just – and there's no cameras around. I don't even know where they're working out. I know it, he told me what's going on, but for the most part, he's just doing this And he normally doesn't do this early in the offseason. Usually he's traveling or he's playing golf in different tournaments, and he'll continue to travel. But for the most part, he wanted to get guys together and kind of forget about last year and start looking ahead. And you don't see that from a lot of guys, especially guys going into the 16th year.
Well, I think that's why it was so important that he did return in 2019, because it is such a young locker room just with the wide receivers. But now you have someone who everyone, as you come into the NFL, knows, run routes, catch the ball, but, how to be a professional. And that was something that Fitz has been open about, what Emmitt Smith taught him. Look the part, act the part, make sure that you are presentable and then accountable as well. And that's something that sometimes takes a few seasons for a lot of these guys coming out of college, but Fitz wants to make sure, like you mentioned, a Christian Kirk, Trent Sherfield, Jalen Tolliver, and even the newcomer Kevin White, not so much a newcomer, but still relatively young, as far as being able to help them out to where you can succeed both on and off the field.
Yeah, and just look at the guys' lockers next to Larry, all wide receivers. I mean, that's the way it's set up. Obviously you get a new guy, he may be on the other side of the locker room. So over the years, whether it was John Brown, Jaron Brown, J.J. Nelson, those guys are no longer on the roster. And now you throw in Tolliver and a guy like Trent Sherfield. I mean, you just watch him, what it's like to be a pro. You watch how he acts after games, win or lose. And hopefully, even if 50%, 10%, 20% rub off on you, and you can see Sherfield he's just a sponge over there. He listens to Larry when he talks to us. He obviously has a relationship to where he can ask him questions. So it goes a long way. We just see the production on the field, but a lot of this stuff takes place in the locker room, if not in the community.
And this was a big deal. Make no mistake about it. Fitz has never done this as far as speaking in front of the annual league meeting, but he is among several players, both active and former, that are actually participating this week. Russell Wilson was due to give a presentation this week as well. We ran into Aeneas Williams earlier today, as we did at the Combine in Indianapolis. So former players, current players, but a lot of activity, and we'll keep account of it here on Cardinals Cover 2 on Wednesday's show. We, again, expect a little bit more news with regards to aspects of overtime, onside kick, and, of course, what everyone is talking about as instant replay. But Fitz, certainly on Monday, the end of what has been a very impressive and busy, 48, 72 hours, and just specifically on Saturday alone, he practiced his presentation at the annual league meeting. That was at the Biltmore. And then he attended Celebrity Fight Nights, and then, been told, he showed up at State Farm Stadium at Garth Brooks' concert. Actually had a helicopter over to Garth Brooks' concert, which was almost, 80,000 strong, and a great time by everyone in attendance. But for those that might have missed it, Garth Brooks showed up on stage, opened up the show, coming out in a Larry Fitzgerald Cardinals jersey. He was then presented with his own personalized Cardinals jersey by Larry Fitzgerald.
I got a little jersey for you. I'll make you an official Cardinal. Hey, very sweet. I'm so glad. First of all, man, you look awesome. What are you all dressed up like? I had to put my best on for you. I'm sure. Hey, man, this gives me a great opportunity. Sometimes because people are in our own backyard, we really don't know what we have. Can I just tell you, Arizona, you have possibly the greatest human being I have ever met in my life.
Certainly, for those that might not be able to tell, that is Brooks' name on the back and number 1 on the front. And appreciate at Glendale AZ, the city of Glendale's Twitter account, for that piece of video. But officially 77,653 tickets sold. Not only a stadium record, but an Arizona record for any single night event. And then afterwards on Sunday, both Fitz and Garth Brooks had a nice little Twitter exchange. Garth Brooks, quote, "Larry Fitzgerald, if they ever made a Hall of Fame for the best human beings, you'd be a shoo-in for the Hall as well." And then Fitz responded, quote, "You'd have the first spot in that hall, brother. Can't wait to see you in Nashville soon and give you another chance to beat me on the basketball court," unquote. So apparently the two play basketball a lot. or at least on occasion. I mean, it's,
I can't imagine all the
yeah.
phone numbers that Fitz has in his phone. I mean, from presidents. I mean, I know he's done stuff with former President
just think
Bill
about,
Clinton,
about
Barack
this
Obama.
offseason alone.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with football. There's the hole-in-one with Barack Obama.
Right.
And now sharing the stage with Garth Brooks. One of the
Who was more popular, Garth Brooks that night or Larry Fitzgerald?
All right, that's
you don't have to answer it.
It's a fair question.
One night, Larry's going to get,
but I'm guessing there were probably more Garth Brooks fans in attendance than Larry Fitzgerald fans.
But any other day, Larry.
And there were Larry chants.
There were
Larry chants. So yes, but as we said, it is good to be number 11, Larry Fitzgerald.
Last year on the 400th ever Big Red Rage show, Larry Fitzgerald, that question came up, like who's the most famous person in your cell phone? Paul Calvisi asked him, "Do you have any former presidents in your?" And he said, "No." But I would imagine he might have Obama's number now after having the hole-in-one with him this offseason. But he did say, we asked, what was his favorite number to have in there that he might just sit back and go, man, I have this guy on my phone. And he mentioned Tiger Woods. He was just like, sometimes he scrolls through and he just see Tiger fly by and he's like, that's pretty darn cool. So that was a cool story that Larry relayed last year.
I got to assume he's got Michael Jordan's number. Patrick Peterson has Michael Jordan's number.
But if he doesn't, all it would take is one phone call or one text.
Yes.
And then, of course, the two would be put in touch with one another. That's, if you need anything in Arizona, just ask Fitz.
Yeah, we've been talking about 6 degrees of separation a whole bunch on this show. Yes. With Larry, it's not even it's about one. So, he could get to anyone.
Or sometimes half of one.
Exactly.
I was sitting there today like, would Larry ever consider being the commissioner? I mean, it pays a lot.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to work as hard.
Well, I don't know.
He's
true, but
what do you say about coaching?
Too many hours.
Too many hours.
He doesn't want to be a GM because he would have a hard time cutting players. But he talked about real estate.
Yeah, that was interesting. Larry Fitzgerald, developer.
Yes. Developing a little bit of south of Phoenix.
Yeah, keep your eyes on number 11. See, this is what we
You
talk
can buy
about,
a house from Larry.
Oh, wow.
Well, he's going to be the developer, so you'd have to buy it from the real estate people.
Would he show houses? If that's the case,
hey, whatever it takes, man.
That's true. Whatever it takes to get.
You want to do a meet and greet? You're going to sign on the dotted line as you leave? No problem.
Exactly.
I'll be there at 10 a.m. and he's not going to be late.
Anything to sell for Fitz as we continue here on a Monday afternoon. Cardinals cover 2. I want to go back to the annual league meeting because Kliff Kingsbury involved as well. This also happened over the weekend. He sat down with NFL Films. He also spent time with EA Sports. And, of course, the Madden NFL 2020 is being worked on. And for those that are watching us right now, the video is 17 cameras simultaneously snapping pictures to create his likeness for the video game, and that was courtesy Mark Dalton, the Cardinals Senior Vice President of Media Relations, snapped that. That happened over the weekend, and certainly a spectacular display, and just the amount of work that goes in for that Madden game, because it is something that people wait for to figure out, one, who's on the cover, and then when you play it, on how much detail it goes into, not only sidelines, but, of course, what happens between the lines.
Yeah, and anytime you see Kliff, he's very stoic, and, he looks good on the camera. Obviously, he's got the looks, but, you got to show some animation on the sidelines, so it'd be interesting to see how much they were able to get out of him. But 17 cameras, man, the spotlight is on.
Yeah, and, of course, he'll be spotlighted tomorrow during the head coach's breakfast, probably one of the more sought-after coaches as far as just because of what's going on with this Cardinals team. And, of course, we'll get into that just a little bit. But the other note that happened, this is league-wide, somewhat of a local connection, but the big news around the NFL is Rob Gronkowski retiring 9 seasons. Made the announcements on Sunday. Very low-key announcement considering his personality, but the former U of A Wildcat, 29 years old, will turn 30 here in May, but calling it quits after 9 seasons and basically missing just over almost 2 full seasons because of injuries. But you look at what he accomplished: Super Bowl champion 3 times over, a Pro Bowler 5 times over, an All-Pro 4 times, and of course what he's done with the Patriots as the all-time leader in touchdowns scored. But I don't know if I think it was a surprise, but something that he was contemplating a year ago, but now leaving on top after a Super Bowl win.
Yeah, and his agent Drew Rosenhaus, who's making the rounds at the NFL owners meetings, he said honestly when Rob called him, I mean he was a little surprised, but from a standpoint of having a conversation over the last year, when he says surprised, he's surprised maybe he made his decision because there was talk over the weekend that Jared Cook was talking to the Patriots, and the Patriots are saying, well, we don't know if Gronk's coming back, and he's in negotiations with the Saints, and they think they could have had him. Rosenhaus did say, hey, listen, we get to September, maybe after the bye week, maybe a late run in the postseason, or a late run in November and December. It wouldn't surprise him if Gronk returns. Now, Gronk is a guy that, I think he'll get into wrestling.
Likes to have fun.
I'm sure he'll be in some movies as that tough guy or security guard. I don't know if he'll have a lot of speaking parts. But, I mean, what a career. And, first thing you think of, a guy that played 9 years, is he a Hall of Famer? Well, we got some guys in the Hall of Fame right now that played 6 years, outstanding careers. But you look at what he just did in the postseason. I want to say he played 16 postseason games. I want to say he had 75 to 80 catches, over 1,100 yards, and I want to say 11 or 12 just in the postseason. Now, granted, you talked about he only played a couple full seasons, but he had 16 games in the postseason. He did miss one of the Super Bowls because of an injury, but 3 Super Bowl victories. Curious to see what comes his way. But I do think we're going to see him in the movies, and I think we'll see him in wrestling. And then he does a great job with charity events, shaves his head, obviously, for cancer. So I still think he'll have a big part in the Foxborough and New England area. I don't see him on TV, but to me, he's going to pick and choose what he wants to do, and we'll see if he decides to come back and play football.
A unique talent on the field and a unique personality,
Big personality
off the field. Here is Fitz talking about Gronkowski's decision to call it a career.
He's a Hall of Famer, and he's a Hall of Fame talent and personality, and we're going to miss him and what he brought to this game, his energy, his excitement, his love and passion. He'll be sorely missed, and I wish him the very best in his retirement, and hope he come back to Arizona and hang out with us a little bit.
Of course, a lot of people commenting on social media about this, and I thought one of the better tweets, I don't know if you saw this, MJ, was ESPN's Mike Sando tweeted, "Good day for safeties and linebackers."
Yeah, because you don't have to cover that guy anymore.
A
matchup nightmare.
Second-round pick, number 42 overall, back in the 2020 NFL
and the
draft.
reason why he dropped was because of the back
injury.
Matter
that's
of
right.
fact, Bill Polian had him. Their doctor said, take him off your draft board. And you're like, really? And here we are 9 years later. Now he's had back operations. He's had surgery on the back. He's had other injuries. So maybe it's a good time that he's walking away. But just a little bit of a sliver. We could see him again. But according to Gronk, he's done for now.
It is a Monday edition here on Cardinals Cover 2, coming to you from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, and, of course, broadcasting in our Bose QC35s, as we always do here. Go to Bose.com for more information. When we talk about Gronkowski as far as a second-round pick, of course, well, 1 month from today, MJ, the 2019 NFL Draft, we'll have all the answers.
We hope.
We hope. Don't say that.
No, I'm just...
We're almost inside 30 days.
No, right, and I don't think we're going to know anything until the Cardinals are on the clock. Maybe something trickles out before the draft, but normally it happens when you're on the clock.
Yeah, it's certainly still, though, the buzz, the talk,
yeah.
and especially
and
this
it's going to
week.
be the talk up until draft night.
Yeah, it's not going away, and, of course, the Cardinals front and center on that. By the way, Fitz was asked about all the Kyler Murray, Josh Rosen discussion after his press conference this morning. His response was, quote, "That's above my pay grade," unquote.
And that's like you and I saying, stay in your lane.
Yes. Although, it doesn't hurt to ask.
No. But it is above his pay grade.
But Fitz does, you would think, just from an outside, have some influence, perhaps.
Influence?
Or his opinion.
I think
so,
opinion, but I mean, at the same time, they got to do what's best for the franchise.
And you have no idea how much longer he's going to play.
Exactly. Now, when you're recruiting players, and obviously the draft picks you're not allowed to recruit them. You get drafted, and that's the place you go. But he's done a good job trying to get guys to come here. And again, at the end of the day, it's about fit and asking price and kind of role you're going to have. But he's done a good job trying to convince guys to come here.
So what fits best for the Cardinals? Kingsbury sitting down with the NFL Network, Steve Weish, over the weekend. And, of course, the question was asked, has a decision been made on who the Cardinals will select with the #1 overall pick?
We haven't. We're a long ways from that. You know, coaches are on the road, scouts are on the road, private workouts, pro days, and we won't even discuss it until next week and try to fill our board and go from there.
There's been a lot of conversation about Kyler Murray being the guy that would fit your offense the most, but you've got Josh Rosen there, who was a top 10 pick last season. How do you guys deal with the outside chatter when it comes to that?
I think you focus on what you can control, and Josh knows our feelings on him, and we that hasn't changed. He's a tremendous talent. Had, you know, some tough adversity to fight through last year with some injuries up front, but I thought competed his tail off and worked hard and continued to get better, and so excited about his future.
Have you guys communicated with him about those feelings that you have for him?
Yeah, I've talked to Josh, and he understands it's a business and what all goes with the first pick and what's going on.
Do you foresee Josh being part of your team in the fall?
Yeah, I do. I mean, when you have the first pick, anything can happen, as you know. But, you know, he's a talented player, and we're very high on him, and that hasn't changed. Saying
what you just said about Josh, is there the possibility that you could go quarterback with that first pick?
I think everything's on the table. I think, like I said, when you have that first pick, you've got to turn over every stone and look at every scenario that's out there, and so we're definitely doing that.
It's funny because, as you said, MJ, this is not going to go away. We're not going to learn anything officially until maybe the Cardinals are on the clock on April 25th. But what this has not stopped is when anyone speaks, whether it's Michael Bidwell, Steve Keim, Kliff Kingsbury, or any report out there, people are now dissecting what is being said, what is being written, the quotes, to try to figure out, okay, what can we draw a conclusion from? But you listen to Kingsbury and, like, yeah, they've talked to Rosen. We've communicated with him. We're making sure he's aware that this talk is out there, but try to pay no attention to it. And, you know, how Josh feels about this, we still don't know. He hasn't said anything. But a couple of things is he certainly sounded like they left the door open to having both Kyler Murray and Josh Rosen on the roster because quarterback, everything's on the table with regards to that #1 pick. And then Kingsbury did say, well, asked, do you foresee Rosen on the roster this fall? And Kingsbury's response, yeah, I do.
Yeah, now the question becomes, you know, if they decide to go draft a quarterback with the first overall pick, and I still think there's other guys in the mix. I mean, Quentin Williams, I mean, he'd be a great player at any place. And then I look at Bosa, and there's some other guys. I mean, I just don't want to limit to that. But when you have the first pick overall, you have that option. The thing is, worthy-wise and compensation, are you getting good compensation in April, or are you getting better compensation in August?
With regards to trading.
Sam Bradford, Teddy Bridgewater goes down, they give up a 1 and a 4. I mean, again, at this point in time, I think it's a fluid situation. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens on draft day and then draft weekend. Now, whether we hear something on the first day, second, or third, I just think if they get the right opportunity, they feel comfortable with that first overall pick, then I can see something happening that weekend. If not, you can try to wait until August. I don't know how that will help because you want your first-string quarterback to get in all the reps, and you got to motivate a guy like Josh Rosen who's going to try to come in here and say, I should be the quarterback. So it's a situation, and they're aware of all these scenarios. Now it's just a matter of what's best for the organization moving forward.
Financially, and when I say that, I mean the salary cap. Yes, you could afford to have both Kyler Murray and Josh Rosen on the roster at the same time and let them compete it over. You still got Brett Hundley, you still got Charles Knopf, and you have it as an open competition and may the best man win. And there's been more of that talk, or at least that suggestion coming out there, just because, you know, they're too cheap commodities with regards to roster spots. I always kind of look at it as you kind of look back, and as you said, you've got two type A personalities, both wanting the #1 job, and if you do have both of them throughout the entire summer and training camp, what is that dynamic going to look like in the locker room? Last year's franchise quarterback, this year's franchise quarterback. I just don't know if you can do that trying to move forward going into the season and trying to turn around a 3-13 campaign.
Yeah, and these are tough decisions, and obviously they're doing their due diligence, and now we're getting closer. Because it seems like the first, second, maybe in half of the third wave of free agency's been here, and now as Kliff pointed out, we have coaches and scouts going to some of these pro days, and then you get 30 visits, so. You only got 30 days between now and the draft. So, and then you probably want to take a look at some of these other guys a second time. And if you want to work them out, you can't do it here at the facility. You got to go somewhere else. And usually those aren't reported. So I got to think when you narrow it down to 3 or 4 guys, they're going to take a second look. And we know that when the Cardinals drafted Robert Nkemdiche, they met with him 4 different times before the actual draft. Matter of fact, Michael and Steve mentioned they flew to Los Angeles where he was working out the Monday before the draft. So, it's not just one time you meet him at the combine, you bring him here for a visit. I think once you narrow it down to your 3, 4, 5 choices, you want to take another look at these guys just to make sure you're investing. The first overall pick in the draft is going to get $35 million, about $21 million guaranteed.
The one thing, though, Kingsbury did say at the start as far as, quote, we're a long ways from that as far as what to do at number 1. That I believe.
Me too.
Because, that the big meeting with general manager, executives, scouts, that, to my knowledge, hasn't happened. And one of the best pictures that I always wait for as far as when I know it is really draft season or work is really being done is Darren Urban at Cards Chatter on Twitter will always post a picture of the draft room door either open or in use. And when it says in use, that means, hey, you know what? It's draft. We've got our 120 board. We've got the work done inside, and now we need to kind of figure out what we're doing. But in other words, in use, don't walk in here.
Yeah. Now, when I say this, I mean, I assume that every general manager has another general manager's number. I mean, we were at the combine. They all were together. We were at the Biltmore this morning. They're all together. Now, you can call them, but face-to-face conversations go a long way. So who knows if somebody's trying to move up to get the first overall pick. The latest reports are, even though the Raiders maintain that Derek Carr's the guy, they're going to have a private workout and back-to-back days with Dwayne Haskins and Kyle Murray. Now, Mike Mayock came out today and said this is about information. 4 years from now, is Kyle Murray or Dwayne Haskins, are they on Kyler Murray on an NFL roster? Clearly they're going to be, but if they're available, that's when you do your due diligence, and I think that's why they've maintained that. And listen, the Raiders have a lot of holes to fill, but they also have 3 first-round picks, so they can obviously fill some needs, whether it's a pass rusher, wide receiver, since they give up on Amari Cooper. So it'd be interesting to see if somebody's willing to move up, and who are they willing to move up, because we know the Jets want to get out of there at number 3.
Well, information gathering, the Seahawks met with Kyler Murray at the Combine.
Yeah.
And they're not picking in the top 10.
No, and they're not drafting a quarterback. They're about to give Russell Wilson like $40 million a year.
Yeah. Saw him earlier today just kind of hanging out in the lobby.
Yeah.
It's amazing who you run into. Oh, ran into Drew Rosenhaus, too.
Yeah. Next question.
Very, very nice gentleman. Just, But with regard...
He's probably not happy that Gronk's retiring. He doesn't get that 2.5% of $11 million.
Yeah, but I'm sure he's got guys...
He's got over got over 100 clients in the NFL.
I'm sure it's okay.
Yeah.
The number 1 pick, and this talk, for those that might have missed it over the weekend, azcardinals.com has started a series titled The One at 1, and looking back at the last 30 number 1 overall selections and their impact on the team and the league. They went all the way back to 1989. That was Troy Aikman. And then 1990 was Jeff George. And, of course, you can draw your own conclusions. Aikman, yes, certainly worthy of the number 1 overall pick. Jeff George, okay, but didn't live up to the billing of a number 1 overall pick. And that's the other thing as far as who you select, because it's not just having a good NFL career. You have to have a great borderline Hall of Fame career to have that justification, or the expectation, I guess it should say, that tag with the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, and Darren does a great job with this. Obviously, now we're 30 days out, so we'll lead up to the first overall picks, and not a surprise, a couple of quarterbacks on there. The thing is, though, when you look at it, I mean, here the Cowboys, and I want to say they took Steve Walsh in a supplemental draft, and they had 2 quarterbacks there. But for the most part, you look at some of the names that were still on, well, first overall pick. Some of those other guys were Barry Sanders, Derek Thomas. So, I mean, we're talking top 5 picks, but quarterback trumps it. Quarterback trumps every position.
Yeah. Oh, I think the Cowboys are okay with their
selection.
No,
I'm just saying in general, though. I mean, you know, because Troy initially went to Oklahoma to play for Barry Switzer, and he told me he was going to run the wishbone offense, and he said, I'm out of here. I'm going to go play for UCLA. And, you know, obviously he struggled his first year, but once they got the triplets, and he was one of them, the rest is history.
Yeah, certainly keep following along the countdown, if you will, on the 30-year look back at number 1 overall picks. Just go to azcardinals.com. Darren Urban and Kyle Odegaard setting the stage for you as we get closer and closer to April 25th here on a Monday afternoon as we broadcast from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center. Doing so in our Bose QC35s. Go to bose.com for more information. Still to come here on this Monday with the Bird Gang to sound off your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2. Hashtag CardsCover2. We'll do that in just a moment. But first things first, the next episode of Cardinals Flight Plan, Episode 4, titled New Year's Day. It focuses on free agency and all the moves the Cardinals have made thus far. Here's a sneak peek.
First, I want to start, guys, and thank everybody for their input the past few days in the free agency. We took all the input, and I feel like at the end of the day, we did the right thing by putting a Cardinal grade on each player.
This is sort of March Madness in a different way.
The Arizona Cardinals have a big splash, this time at inside linebacker. I'm told they are signing Jordan Hicks.
I believe when I play and I'm healthy, I'm the best linebacker on the field. But at the end of the day, I feel like I have a lot to prove.
The belief here is the pass rush is the key to what Vance Joseph does with his defense.
Arizona is home.
I wasn't going to be playing in Baltimore. I was going to be in Cardinal red.
It's kind of like riding off to the sunset in a sunset that's familiar to you.
Wouldn't it be cool to go back home and play for the Cardinals?
This is what I was waiting for, man.
You always think about it growing up.
Now it's official, all right?
Playing a lot of games against the Cardinals. I know the atmosphere, and it's a great atmosphere.
It's official.
I'm a Cardinal?
You're a Cardinal.
Here we go,
Congrats.
There.
This is
Seeing
awesome.
red, baby. Let's do it.
March 28th is the day Episode 4 debuts, 6 p.m. on Facebook Watch and YouTube. And, of course, you can catch up with past episodes by going to azcardinals.com/flight plan. And, yeah, a lot about the homecoming, but let's be honest. Terrell Suggs, Brett Hundley are not coming back to the Cardinals or their hometown team if the Cardinals didn't think that they could contribute if needed with regards to Hundley as a backup. But certainly you don't just sign guys because it's going to make a good headline and a good storyline going into the season.
Yeah, and, Brett Hundley's a guy that could be the backup quarterback. He's a guy that, the Cardinals liked when he came out of school at UCLA. He was drafted. And then he was traded to the Seattle Seahawks, so he's backed up Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, so he's going to come in with a wealth of knowledge there. The guys they showed, though, J.R. Sweezy, he's a tough guy. He's going to be really an upgrade at the right guard spot. Now that Pugh likely go to left guard. And then we talked about Jordan Hicks. I mean, you talk to anybody in Philadelphia, and I talked to a few guys today. The key is he's got to stay healthy. Went on the field healthy, very productive. And he's ready to be the leader of this defense. He's going to be the guy who's going to get guys lined up. He's going to make the calls, and he's a 3-down backer, and he's really excited to be here. So really good signings, and I love the personality of Terrell Suggs. Just, I'm a Cardinal now. Michael said yes.
Yeah, he's going to be a lot of fun to deal with in the locker room as well. All right, time for the Bird Gang to sound off here on this Monday. Your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2. CardsCover2 using the number 2 to get involved in the show here on this Monday afternoon. We'll begin with Twitter. User wants to know any more updates on additions to the defensive line after the signing Phylon, or do you think they will go to the draft?
Well, I mean, if there's somebody out there, like matter of fact, Rodney Gunter's still a free agent. They would like to retain him. There are agents hanging out the owners' meetings, some guys that haven't been signed yet. So I always think they're looking, and maybe they're going to wait for some guys to get released as we get closer to the NFL draft or a couple days later. So if they can continue to add, but I think the focus right now is on the NFL draft, making sure they dot the I's, cross the T's, and do their due diligence. And again, that's why coaches are going out to some of these pro days, private workouts, etc. So I still think if there's a player out there they want to add or retain a player like Rodney Gunter, we could see that. But right now I think the focus is on the NFL draft.
Okay, what about a player out there with regards to the wide receiver room? User wants to know, can you see Des Bryant in a Cardinals jersey next season?
You never say never. I think the Cardinals will address that in free agency. You still have Fitz, and they got Christian Kirk, and we'll see about the other guys. I mean, I think Kevin White's going to get a chance to make this roster. Jalen Tolliver, Trent Sherfield, Farrell Cooper. We'll see if he's more of a returner. I haven't heard his name, and I thought he ended up in a good spot last year with the Saints. Unfortunately, he got hurt, but a lot of it's going to come down to his asking price, and he likes to get the ball, and I don't know if they have enough targets or touches for him.
Yeah, I would call it a long shot at this point. Let's move to Instagram. User wants to know, even after the free agent signings, is offensive line still the team's biggest need?
I don't think so. I mean, you still want to add young players, and we know that, at this point in time, they don't trust young players. Doesn't mean you can't develop them, especially with a guy like Sean Kugler, the Cardinals' new offensive line coach. But they've added 3 guys on and through free agency. Obviously, look at J.R. Sweezy. You look at Marcus Gilbert, who they made the trade for. That's your starting right guard and right tackle. And then Max Garcia is a guy that maybe once he gets back from injury, he could be your backup guard. So I still think they'll add to the position, but I think it's going to be younger players versus veteran players.
Yeah, I would look at defensive line and wide receivers
Definitely.
A little bit ahead of offensive line right now. More from Instagram. In your opinion, what was the most important free agent signing thus far?
Wow, I mean, they had to address the offensive line, but I think Jordan Hicks and Robert Alford. I mean, I'm cheating here because there's not just one. I think Alford can solidify that number 2 corner opposite of Patrick Peterson. Cardinals been missing an inside linebacker maybe since the early part of Dale Buchanan or Darrell Washington. And then you throw in the offensive line. They've added veteran leadership there, guys that have done it before, guys that have been in the trenches, guys that are physical. So I think it's a combination. They definitely had to address the offensive line, the opposite corner position, and then the inside linebacker spot. And they filled someone with some really good depth guys. I think Suggs was a good pickup just because of the energy and personality he'll bring to that defense.
Well, with respect to Alford and Hicks, you mentioned it. Those were the 2 longest contract that this team has signed.
Alford got a 3-year deal. Hicks got a 4-year deal. Sweezy got a 2-year deal. So, yeah, I mean, and technically Suggs is under contract next year. It's one of those things on the 5th day of the season, the Cardinals have to notify him if he's going to be there. So, but for the most part, a lot of 1-year deals, prove-it deals. But you could see the guys that they invested long-term would be on a short-term deal, Sweezy, and then throw in Alford and then Jordan Hicks.
Yeah, I would lean more towards Alford as being that guy, especially if you can really solidify that position. You don't have to keep addressing it each offseason.
Well, and again, we'll see if they address the corner. They have a couple guys on the roster between David Amerson and Dietrich Nichols, so they could be in the mix there. But I do think whether it's undrafted free agent, they'll continue to bring more guys in. You can't settle there, and you still have Brandon Williams on the roster.
Last question from Instagram, and this is a good one. How does loyalty affect changes that a GM makes to a roster, specifically veterans?
Coming or going? Just in general?
Yeah, just in general, and I'll throw this out because it is a difficult decision that has to be made. But what was Steve Keim's one of his first decisions that he made as general manager?
Letting go of Adrian Wilson.
Yeah.
And they both cried.
And that
was a very emotional
You talk
day.
about loyalty. There's not been anyone more loyal to this organization than Mr. Adrian Wilson.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, you got to make sure you don't let good players leave. But, Marcus Golden coming off the injury, he ended up with the New York Giants. I mean, Dale Buchanan is going back with Todd Bowles, and Todd's going to use him a little bit different. I talked to Todd on Saturday at Bruce Arians thing. So, for the most part, I mean, they had 14 free agents, and right now they've only retained 1. That's what happens when you have these guys for 3 or 4 years. Sometimes you got to move on. It's not personal. And Steve, guys like Kareem Martin and Tony Jefferson and Marcus Cooper, they've gone out and made money. So it's not personal. You're just trying to get better at certain positions.
Oh, and Calais Campbell as well. Sometimes, you want to retain guys, but at what price? And then, of course, the length of the contract as well. If these were all 1-year deals, maybe it's a different conversation. And if everyone doesn't want to get paid and get 10, 12, 14 million, then of course you can afford more guys to come back.
I think Steve and Michael have done a really good job IDing the core moving forward and extending them. Now, obviously, Larry, it's a matter of him making a decision, but for the most part, getting Chandler Jones, putting the tag on him, getting him a long-term deal. They did that with some of the core players in the past, and I think Budda Baker's on that list. I would anticipate Patrick Peterson. He's got 2 years left on his deal. Maybe next offseason we talk about it. They're talking about an extension. So you ID your core. They re-upped David Johnson, gave him a long-term deal. So if you're part of their core moving forward, they ID you and they try to take care of you.
Appreciate the Bird Gang sounding off here on this Monday using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2, using the number 2 to get involved in the show. We do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here towards the end of the show. And, of course, if you ever miss an episode here of Cardinals Cover 2, just download it as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or tune in. We will continue to monitor the events, the news that come out of the Biltmore here as the annual league meetings continue all the way until Wednesday. Of course, the big one on tomorrow is the coaches' breakfast in the morning, and then we expect to hear from the competition committee about mid-afternoon or maybe right around lunchtime as far as what rule changes, if any, will be happening in 2019, and we'll discuss it again here on Wednesday's show. And with that, we will say so long on this Monday afternoon. Special thanks to those behind the scenes, Tim Delaney, Jim Alejandro, Devin Henry, and Jackson Sipes. For Mike Jurecki, I'm Craig Grialou. We'll talk to you on Wednesday here on Cardinals Cover 2.